Hello, 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 hello. Happy Sunday. How's it going, everyone? I have been better. I haven't talked about this on here yet. I don't think I actually might have mentioned it in passing. But when my lease ends this August, I'm moving back home with my family in Virginia. I've lived in LA for 7 years, and I just got to a point, like I went through a breakup of a 3-year relationship with someone that I lived with last summer. And then I got my own place, and I was sort of like, oh yeah, this is the place that I'm going to want to be forever. And I've just not felt very like at home. I've not felt like there's that much more for me to do. Pasadena is beautiful, but I've found that it's really not for me. It's so suburban in so many families. As someone who doesn't want to get married necessarily and doesn't want to have kids, like I don't really think that I feel like I fit in here. I feel like a little alienated and ostracized from the conversation just by first and foremost not having kids, and second, not wanting to have kids, and third, being gay and not wanting to get married. Do you know that feeling when like you have everything you want and you're like, why am I not happy? But things just start to feel more and more like increasingly uncomfortable. Like your clothes start to feel like they're too tight, and everything starts to, this might literally just be because I'm autistic, but like everything starts to overstimulate you. There's been multiple days this week where simply the sound of cars outside my window has been too much for me. It's been really overstimulating. I have to put on my noise canceling headphones and turn on like binaural beats. And even that like can't even get rid of it sometimes. It's just like I moved to the suburbs. I moved somewhere green. I wanted somewhere peaceful to heal from being abused by my ex-boyfriend. And all I can hear is cars and sirens and planes and helicopters and birds. Some of it is good, but I think that it's not so much that this is an uninhabitable environment. Like I've lived here for almost a year and I haven't had these same feelings the whole time, but just that like, the Taylor Swift lyric, in your soul when it's time to go, is like really how I feel. I've had this feeling before when I lived in DC and I decided I wanted to move to LA. This is how I was feeling in DC. I was like, every day is the worst. I also moved in December then, so it was like so cold in DC that I couldn't feel my face when I went outside, and I was like, this is horrible. I fucking hate it here. And yeah, that's pretty much how I feel in LA right now. I just have the strongest vendetta against car culture. I don't like cars. I don't like driving. I have to have a car. I have to drive. It's required in LA. But the other night, my friend invited me to her birthday drinks, and I drove. I got all ready. I was looking so cute. By the way, do you like my dress? It is a sequined pink full-length bodycon maxi dress, actually, and it looks absolutely phenomenal. You can only see my torso, and congratulations. It's a good looking torso, I believe. But anyway, I like got all cute. I drove 30 minutes to Studio City to go to Laurel Tavern. I get there. I drive around looking for parking for 20 minutes, and there's nothing. I look for metered parking. I look for paid parking. I look for street parking on residential streets. I look in these like sketchy back alleys that are really not maintained. I drive through a giant pothole and give myself quite a fright that I popped my tire or something. And after 20 minutes, I was just like, I think I have to go home. And so I just drove home and texted my friend. I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I couldn't find parking anywhere. Let's hang out sometime soon because I do want to see you and celebrate your birthday. I just like couldn't find parking anywhere. And it was like, this sucks. This sucks so bad. Like LA, where you have to drive everywhere. An Uber when I first moved here was like less than $10 because it was like the starting phase. But now those Ubers are like $40 to $50. Like you have to drive places, but you can't find parking when you get there. It's hell. How are we supposed to live like this? And I was in New York for New Year's, and people were asking me at this New Year's party, they're like, oh, do you want to live in LA forever? And I was like, well, I haven't really thought about that. Forever is a really long time. Probably not. And so that was the first time I got in my brain, like, maybe I want to leave LA. And then I came back, and the next day the fires happen, and I have to evacuate me and my cats to my friend's apartment in Glendale. I was like right on the border of the mandatory and suggested evacuation zone. And I was just, the whole time I was just, my apartment's going to burn down. My apartment is going to burn down. Like, what would I do if my apartment burned down? And for so long, that was my greatest fear. Like, if you've been in an abusive relationship, you probably understand, but like, I spent so long just being so worried about my safety and security needs. Like, I was like, if anything happens to my home, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, I need my home. It's the only thing I need in this world. And then when my home was actually on the line, I was really stressed out. But then I was like, well, what would I do? What will I do if it burns down? And I was like, I think I would take the renter's insurance payout and move to Stockholm. For some reason, I wanted to move to Sweden at this point. I actually don't want to move to Sweden right now. It's too cold for me. But that was my thing. I was like, I'm going to take the renter's insurance payout and move to Stockholm. So when my apartment didn't burn down, but was absolutely covered in ash inside and out somehow, I was like, I think I'm ready to move. And then Trump gets inaugurated a couple weeks later, and I was like, I know I'm ready to move to another country, ideally. But my parents still live in Northern Virginia, right outside DC, and we have like a pretty secluded house in the forest, which is like exactly what I need right now. I need somewhere quiet. I need somewhere where I'm not constantly hearing cars. I need somewhere where I'm not constantly hearing sirens and helicopters. I need somewhere that I can live rent free. My parents need someone to cook for them because they're getting quite old and I don't think they cook that well. And so it feels like a very natural choice. I'm going to move home in early September or late August, and I'm going to go to Costa Rica, I think, in December and get my yoga teacher training certification, which I've actually done before. I did it in college, but it has expired. So I'm going to go get a new one. And then I'm going to work on building my astrology business and teach yoga around my hometown and sort of see what the universe has in store for me. Like, I want to move abroad. I don't think I'll stay home longer than a year, but I don't know where. I'm thinking Barcelona. I'm thinking Mexico City. I'm learning Spanish. I already speak French. You know, there's a lot of options that are available, and this world is a very wide and vast place. And I'm sad to say goodbye to LA. Like, I've been choking up the whole time I've been talking about this. But I've been here for 7 years. I've been here actually the entire time that Uranus has been in Taurus. And then Uranus moves into Gemini next month. And so it's sort of like my life is aligned with the Uranus cycles. Gemini is my 4th house. So it's like time to change where you live. I'm like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. 7 years is also sort of a long time to be somewhere. Like, I'm a completely different person now than I was then, obviously. I've been through so many fun things. I really ran this town at one point. I was really living the dream, but I was an alcoholic. And so I've been through being in an abusive relationship. I've been through living with a man and deciding that I actually don't want to date men at all, ever, and that I actually hate them. I've been through quitting drinking. I have made and lost and made friends. You know, I have really lived a full life here. And I'm ready for the next chapter. And I'm very excited, but I'm also sad to be leaving. But I am also happy to be going back to DC. I don't know if I have listeners who are in like the DC area, but I'm really excited to like be able to meet up with people there. I obviously have a ton of friends there from when I used to live in DC and from growing up in Northern Virginia. I'm like excited to have friends closer by because like my best friend lives in Woodland Hills. He lives 40 miles away from me. It's such a long drive, especially if there's traffic and gas is so expensive. And it's just like so frustrating that I can't see my best friend without spending an hour in the car both ways. I've had a year of like isolation and it's been what I've needed in some ways. Like I've spent thousands of dollars and a bunch of hours in therapy and EMDR therapy, specifically working on healing my trauma from lifelong narcissistic abuse. I've done countless hours of yoga and kundalini and somatic practices. I've filled multiple journals with thoughts. I've left the corporate world. I'm starting my own business. Like even this year alone has been amazing, but I know that there's more and better for me out there and I'm excited to go find it. Woo! Anyway, that made me want to cry. So let's talk about something else. I don't know. I'm already sick of this topic already, but I guess I'll cover it. The Sabrina Carpenter album cover for Man's Best Friend, where she's fully clothed on her hands and knees and someone is like gently holding her hair. The backlash against this is ridiculous. You guys would not have survived Britney Spears. You guys would not have survived Christina Aguilera's Dirty Era. You would have died. You would have fainted. You would have had a stroke if you watched one single episode of Room Raiders on MTV. Like, what is this? You have become the purity culture, the conservative culture that you're so scared of. Policing a woman's art is supposed to make people uncomfortable. It's supposed to start conversations. It's supposed to make people think. And trying to censor it or like expect her to issue an apology is absolutely ridiculous. That's all I'm going to say about that. I've already said enough on TikTok. People who are being like, it's for the male gaze. Like, what's the male gaze? The male gaze is a film term. Like, it was never supposed to be something that like we adopt to TikTok. And it's like dressing for the male gaze versus the female. Men and women have the same eyes. And personally, female, my gaze likes when women look sexy. It's not just for men. It's such a frustrating topic. And just let the girl live, okay? Sabrina Carpenter's whole thing, she has a song about getting cream pied. She does sex positions on stage at her concerts. And this is what you're mad about? It's just like, she's a feminist. She's a global pop superstar, and she has a huge platform and tons of influence, and she's a feminist. Like, Sabrina Carpenter is not your enemy. Why don't you turn your rage and your attention and your focus onto men and onto the patriarchy, which are the actual problems in our society. Anyway, that's all. Continuing my Pride Month series where I spotlight queer individuals, today I'm going to cover the beautiful, talented, incredibly stylish Janelle Monáe. I love Janelle Monáe. I've loved their music for a really long time. I love their style. I'm obsessed with looking at their outfits. And I got to learn a lot more about them, even for this podcast episode, which was really exciting. Janelle Monáe is non-binary. They use she, her, they, them, and free ass mother effer pronouns. So I'll probably be alternating between she and they in this episode. I swear their birth chart is so interesting. I'm going to flash it up here, and then I'm going to talk about their life story and then move into the astrology. But look at this. I was like, oh. And I was also like, oh, a Gemini moon, just like me. Like, let's talk about it. I think that Gemini moons are the jewels of the moon kingdom. If you look at a picture collage of like only Gemini moon people, their eyes, they just say, I would rather be anywhere else. They hold a deep, deep well of pain. And you're welcome, because what Gemini moons go through pain for is what brings you joy. If you throw a dinner party and you don't invite anyone with a Gemini moon, Gemini rising, Gemini sun, you're going to have a boring dinner party. Geminis are the reason that society is fun. Like, Geminis are the people who everyone looks to when there's a lull in the conversation. They're like, what are you going to say to spice this up? Gemini moons are the backbone of our society. And I, as a proud Gemini moon, salute Janelle Monáe for what they have done for Gemini moon representation in our community. Janelle Monáe Robinson was born on December 1st, 1982 at 12:01 a.m. in Kansas City, Kansas. They are a Sagittarius Sun, a Gemini Moon, and a Virgo rising. They also have this crazy fourth house Sagittarius stellium right here, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But just like always, everything I see in this birth chart fits so well with Janelle Monáe's life story. It's crazy. When people are like, I don't believe in astrology, I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. Astrology is real. It does work. I've seen over and over and over and over and over again a bajillion times that it does. You're a fool. Be gone. Hopefully everyone watching this video does believe in astrology in some capacity. And if you don't, I don't really know why you're here, but I am hoping to change your mind today. And thank you for keeping an open mind. Janelle comes from a working class family that grew up in a very poor, mostly African-American community in Kansas City called Quindaro. And this is Kansas City, Kansas, not Missouri. Janelle's parents were working class. Her mom, Janet, was a janitor and a hotel maid, and her dad, Michael, was a truck driver. Her parents also got divorced pretty early in her life, and her mom remarried a man who was her postal worker. And she says that her stepfather was always treated her just like a daughter and was always just a wonderful, wonderful man to her. And so they talk about their tuxedo uniform, like how they always wear black and white, as really an homage to the working class community. They said that they always saw their mother and their father and their stepfather wearing uniforms to work every single day. And they want to pay homage to that and have sort of a uniform of their own. Janelle was raised Baptist and learned to sing at a local church in their community. Janelle says that she's always dreamed of being a performer and a singer, and has cited Dorothy Gale from The Wizard of Oz, as well as the album The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, as inspirations when she was young. She also started writing musicals when she was a preteen 13, and at age 12, she finished a musical that was based on Stevie Wonder's Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants, which I think is so cool. I would actually love to see this musical. Janelle moved to New York City to study at AMDA, the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, when she was college age, and she was the only Black woman in her class. She says that she enjoyed it, but she also feared that it would make her like everyone else. And she also wanted to write her own musicals instead of performing other people's musicals. She said, "I didn't want to have to live vicariously through a character that had been played thousands of times in a line with everybody else wanting to play the same person." And so all of this led her to drop out after a year and a half, to move to Atlanta and to enroll at Georgia Perimeter College. In 2003, Janelle released a demo that she sold out of the back of her car, and she also was working at Office Depot. She gets fired from Office Depot for using one of the work computers to respond to an email from a fan. This inspires her to write the song Letting Go, which attracts the attention of Big Boi, who is one half of the rap duo Outkast. Janelle is then featured on 2 songs on Outkast's 2006 album Idlewild. And then Diddy gets involved and like whatever, and so I don't want to talk about it too much, but then she becomes famous and here we are. One of the things that makes Janelle a very unique artist, and I very much see this reflected in her astrology birth chart, is that they have an alter ego from the year 2719 called Cindy Mayweather. And throughout her EPs and her albums, she has created storylines for this alter ego version of herself to play through. And I think this is so much fun. She's part of the Afrofuturism movement, and her work is just so unique and so Janelle Monáe. And I think it's so cool how she uses this alter ego in her work to inspire storylines. And it was a little bit surprising to me that she doesn't have any placements in Aquarius, because a lot of what she's doing is very Aquarian, but I also do think it fits into the Sagittarius themes, and she has a Sagittarius stellium. She has like 5 planets there, and she has her North Node in her 11th house, which is like the natural house of Aquarius, so I think that makes sense as well. Community is really important to Janelle. I watched several interviews in preparation for this podcast, and one thing that she constantly reinforced was her commitment to her community, to the Black community, and specifically creating safe spaces for the Black community where they can have parties and not worry about anyone calling the cops. For the queer community, Janelle has identified with bisexuality and pansexuality for a long time. First tweeted hashtag I am non-binary in January 2020, and then publicly came out as non-binary in 2022 on the show Red Table Talk. She identifies, of course, with the working class community, for which she wears her black and white uniform in homage to working class people everywhere, and of course the community of Black people in Quindaro, Kansas City, Kansas, where she grew up. And Janelle has also created a community in Los Angeles called the Wonderland Art Society Collective, which has the tagline, "We believe there are only 3 kinds of music: good music, bad music, and funk." I was watching an interview of her on a radio show, and she was saying that when she was putting together songs for her albums, she would put them onto the playlist of parties that they would throw at Wonderland Collective. She said parties that are filled with the most beautiful Black and brown people that you've ever seen in your life. She would put her songs that she was testing out onto playlists, and she would see, if people were up and dancing during the song and like Shazamming it and trying to figure out what it was, or if they like sit down and didn't care much about it. And so that would inform her whether she should put the song on her album or not. And then the radio host was like, "Well, did they dislike any of the songs?" And she was like, "No." She was like, "No, I never had to not put anything on an album. Everyone loved it." And I was like, perfect. This also just makes me feel very Virgo. Virgo is so detail oriented and has strong perfectionist tendencies. She's a Virgo rising, and testing out songs and making sure people respond to them before putting them on a body of work is so Virgo of her. Okay, moving on to the astrology. I was watching an interview that Janelle did on the Queen Latifah show, I think, and she was asked what 3 words her friends would use to describe her, and she listed them as funny, a fire starter, like the person who always gets her friends to go and do fun stuff or go on a trip or go start doing work, and also giving. And I was like, this is freaking hilarious, because funny is Gemini Moon, Firestarter is Sagittarius Sun, and Giver is very much Virgo rising. And I was like, you just hit your big 3 right there in this interview answer. Like, that's so funny. Every single person who I cover in this podcast, I'm like, do they know about their astrology? Do they work with an astrologer? Have they dabbled in this before? I assume like pretty much everyone in Los Angeles, pretty much every celebrity has an astrologer, but I actually don't know. I'm wondering if she understands how this translates to her big three, and if she doesn't, how funny it is that she just hit on those three things. Her tuxedo wardrobe is also so Virgo rising. Virgo rising is like clean style. It's like classic style. What's more classic than a tuxedo? And Virgo also doesn't like to experiment too much. They don't like to go outside of the bounds or like change things too suddenly. And so this is what Janelle says about her tuxedo wardrobe. I bathe in it, I swim in it, and I could be buried in it. A tux is such a standard uniform. It's so classy, and it's a lifestyle I enjoy. The tux keeps me balanced. I look at myself as a canvas. I don't want to cloud myself with too many colors or I'll go crazy. It's an experiment I'm doing. I think I want to be in the Guinness Book of World Records. Name a more Virgo statement. I will wait. Janelle also cites Grace Jones and Josephine Baker as style icons for her, as well as Black dandyism, which was the theme of this year's Met Gala, and Janelle looked phenomenal. Like, the theme was obviously made for her. And like I said, she also wears it as an homage to her parents, who she saw wearing a uniform to go to work every single day because they are working class people, and she wants to pay homage to the working class people who raised her, the community that raised her. And nothing says I feel incredibly deeply connected to my family and my roots and my place of origin, like having a stellium in the fourth house. Janelle has a stellium in her fourth house of Sagittarius, which includes the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Uranus, Neptune, and her IC. The IC is the angle in your birth chart that talks about your root and where you come from, which is opposite the MC, which is the angle in your birth chart that talks about where you're going to, how society sees you, your reputation, your career, your fame. Janelle has said that her mother never tried to encourage her to be a doctor or a lawyer. She never tried to get her to be anything but what she wanted to be, which was a performer. And she also said that when you're young and working class, not middle class, much poorer than that, you see how hard your parents work, and you know that once you're able to, you help them out. So that's what I did. I started working so I could help my parents out. If you're a Virgo rising, your fourth house is ruled by Sagittarius, and Sagittarius in the fourth house is someone who has such an enormous flame of passion, desire, and curiosity for what has not yet been explored. The fourth house is like where you come from, your root, your family, your origin, but it's also wherever you find home throughout your life, wherever you find community, wherever you find chosen family instead of born family, wherever you make your home. And so this, combined with the Sagittarian desires to explore and find adventures, means that you're like, I can make home in so many places in this world. I need to explore and find out about them all. Like, I need to know where I can make my home and with whom I can make my home. Especially with her Sun here, it's saying, this is where my life's compass is taking me. These people are not patriotic. I mean, it's pretty hard to be patriotic right now, but not patriotic in general. They have a very strong desire to see and discover other lands. But the thing that they keep with them that always grounds them in who and where they are is their philosophies, their morals, their beliefs, and their values. These people felt some distance from the idea of home in childhood. They didn't necessarily feel like they belonged. They might have felt a little bit alienated. And so they started this process of seeking out where in the world they could find home and where they could create home and where they would feel understood. Virgo risings are very introspective by nature, so they turn inward a lot and let their heart and mind take them on journeys to the most private places within themselves, and they have a really great time connecting to their inner child, who is still very prevalent inside themselves. And Janelle actually said in her interview with Queen Latifah, she was like, I do a lot to make little Janelle happy. Like, I know that I have my inner child, little Janelle, inside myself, and a lot of the things I do are to keep her happy and to heal her wounds. And I think that's so powerful. It's so fourth house Sagittarius, but I mean, it's applicable to everyone. We all have an inner child inside of us, and we need to do things to make them happy and to heal their wounds. These people tend to just be in constant search of their identity, and they inspire the people around them to do that too. So if you're friends with a Virgo rising, you and them are on a constant journey of self-analysis and learning more about yourself, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Someone with different placements might not have that as such like a big priority in their life, but I think it's a beautiful priority to have, and something that everyone really has to do at the end of the day. I mean, you're your only constant in life. If you don't know yourself, if you don't strive to understand yourself better every day and take care of yourself and love yourself, what else are you going to do? Like you're all you've got at the end of the day. The journey of a Sagittarius sun is to take knowledge and turn it into wisdom. Sagittarius is opposite the sign of Gemini, and Gemini / the third house is really about knowledge. It's about primary education. It's about short distance travel. It's about taking in as much information and learning as much as you can get. And then you move across the zodiacal wheel to Sagittarius, the natural ruler of the ninth house. And this is about wisdom. This is about taking all that you've learned. It's about exploring different cultures. It's about traveling to faraway lands and exploring philosophy and morals and values and beliefs, and really synthesizing your knowledge with your beliefs, with what you've seen in the world with other cultures, and turning that into true wisdom that you can carry with you. It's also about finding the wisdom of your body by doing mind-body exercises like yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong. These people love adventures. Sagittariuses are very spontaneous, and Sagittariuses are also so deeply ingrained with their personal philosophies and beliefs and values and morals. Like, it's such an important thing to them. Also in Sagittarius, Janelle has her Mercury exactly conjunct her Venus. And a Sagittarius Mercury is technically in detriment because it's opposite the sign of Gemini, where Mercury is at home. But that's not a bad thing. It was a bad thing with relation to our most recent presidential election. Mercury was in Sagittarius and retrograde in Sagittarius and then direct in Sagittarius, all while the votes were being counted, which I think played with, I mean, obviously the machines were tampered with. Like, it wasn't just counting, but like, it's the worst placement that you can have when you need to do something that's very detail oriented, like counting the number of ballots. But it's a great placement to have for a creative person, for an artist, because your mind can really just adventure anywhere and go anywhere. It's someone who has a big mind that is really oriented to finding the truth, like anywhere. And it's not just like, I want to find the truth. I found a lie. Rats. It's just like, every step on this journey to finding the truth is another step that gets me closer to finding the truth. Like, Sagittarius is a sign that doesn't see things as failures, but sees them as just another step on the path of their journey. These people have a disposition that's bright and cheerful and loves to laugh, and specifically to laugh with other people. Someone with a Sagittarius Mercury could be a great speaker or a great teacher and can really easily inspire others to expand their minds. They also have like an obsessive desire to know. Like, Sagittarius is endless. It's ruled by Jupiter. It's like, gimme, 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 which like is so similar to a Gemini moon. So those two placements for her go hand in hand. She has an obsessive need for knowledge. I feel this way about many celebrities, specifically Taylor Swift, but I would love to know Janelle's Goodreads account or her Storygraph account and see all of the books that she has filled her mind with. Like, I would love to know. She loves sci-fi, so I'm sure she's read like all of the Octavia Butler books. I've got those in my pocket. But what else? Like, I want to know it all. This is my Gemini moon. Gemini moon, recognized Gemini moon. These people really appreciate directness and get so frustrated when someone talks circles around what they're actually trying to say, like using euphemisms and stuff. And they can actually get in trouble for their blunt way of speaking, but that's how they want to be communicated to. And they can also have a problem with listening. Like, they're great speakers, but sometimes they don't listen as much, especially when people start talking in circles and using euphemisms. And this can get them in trouble. And then add in the Sagittarius Venus, and you get like, Janelle Monáe is the most, I mean, I haven't met her, but I imagine she's the most charismatic and funny and social and bright and cheerful person ever. People with a Sagittarius Venus are, once again, fun and friendly and cheerful and sociable. They're people who are really popular. Everyone wants to be their friend. They desire a connection with a broad range of people, both platonically and romantically, so it makes a lot of sense that Janelle is bisexual / pansexual. They've also said that they've had polyamorous and monogamous relationships. Very Sagittarius Venus, just wants to be in every combination of people possible to explore all the new frontiers. This is someone, when you're in relationship with them, they need to keep the spark alive. I mean, This is why Sagittariuses have a reputation for cheating. They want an adventure buddy. They want a friend. They want a spontaneous person. They want someone who they can do new things with and keep that flame of passion alive. Because if it starts to die out, they're not going to be interested anymore and they're going to be leaving out that door. Also, when Janelle came out as non-binary in 2022, they said, I'm non-binary, so I just don't see myself as a woman solely. I feel like God is so much bigger than he or than she. And if I am from God, I am everything. And I have actually never heard a more Sagittarius Venus sentence be uttered in my lifetime. It really is like, I want to experience everything that I can experience. I want to experience what it's like to feel like a woman. I want to experience what it's like to feel like a man. I want to experience what it's like to be some secret third option, a non-binary person. And these people will often find partnerships with people who have different backgrounds than them because they love experiencing different cultures and foreign lands. And what better way to do that than to have someone else who has a different culture in your home with you. A Sagittarius Venus just needs to work on, one, their fear of being possessed. They can have a really hard time being in relationship with people. Once again, they have a reputation for cheating because they're so afraid that someone else will possess them and dim their sparkle. And they can also hold really unrealistic ideals for a partner, expecting them to be their romantic partner and have all this excitement in the bedroom, but also be their best friend, but also be their adventure buddy and want to do all this traveling with them and always wanting to do something new and never letting the same things happen because then they'll get bored and they'll have to leave the relationship. Like working on that, like understanding what do you really need from a partner and what can you get from yourself, and finding a relationship where they can have that freedom or not. Like, I don't want to get married. Like, people aren't required to get married. You can have a different relationship every year, your whole life. That's legal. And honestly, to be encouraged. Life is short. Janelle has a Gemini moon in her 10th house. And so for people with Virgo rising, Gemini is the 10th house. And a 10th house Gemini is someone who's really intelligent. They have a lot of highly developed skills. They can do a lot of things that other people think are really complex. And they're just sort of like, oh yeah, no, I just know how to do that. They have a very innate contemplative and curious nature that everyone recognizes, like even people who are just meeting them for the first time. These people tend to have varied interests, and one of their primary desires is to increase the amount of knowledge that they have. They are always learning. And Virgo risings tend to be people who had to grow up early. They tend to be people who became very familiar with the concept of adulthood at a very early age, and therefore tend to be pretty mature emotionally and mentally, but also have a little bit of that like arrested development that you get when you have to grow up early, where you were never able to fully be a child for your whole childhood. And so you carry a lot of that childhood into your adulthood. It makes a lot of sense that Janelle is very familiar with and works to soothe and please her inner child. And a Gemini moon is just the most perfect placement ever. Sorry to everyone else, but the moon actually does find its planetary joy in the 3rd house, which is the natural house of Gemini. So I don't know. Seems pretty perfect to me. A Gemini moon has never met a feeling that it didn't want to analyze. And the thing that Gemini moons need to be most wary of is over intellectualizing their emotions. Like sometimes you're like, I'm sad. I am sad for X reason. And then you just like dig into all the reasons why you're feeling that emotion and stuff, when what you need to do is drop down into your body. She's a Virgo rising, so she has a very strong earth sign energy in her chart. Drop into your body and just let yourself feel that emotion. Let yourself cry instead of being like, the emotion of sadness is caused by X, Y, and Z. Like, no, just let yourself feel sad. Feel the sadness. Feel how that feels in your body. And let your body learn, do I like this feeling? Do I not like this feeling? Should I do more things that bring this feeling into my life, or should I do less things that make me feel this emotion of sadness? It's really important to just like sit and be grounded with your feelings. Earth and water signs are really good at this, instead of immediately jumping to be like, okay, so why do I feel like this? Which is so Gemini moon. But when we're not over intellectualizing our feelings, we're being incredible conversationalists. Gemini moons have an innate ability to blend the heart and the mind. They are also natural contrarians, which also keeps the conversation going. Once again, if you want to throw a good dinner party, invite a Gemini moon. These people just genuinely love other people. They love to learn about other people. They love to learn how other people's brains work and compare that to how our own brains work and try to understand differences. A Gemini moon loves a paradox. We love to hold polarities. We love to understand how things aren't necessarily all black or all white, or all this or all that, or all good or all bad. We love to be like, a skilled person can also make mistakes. A good person can also make someone else feel bad. All of these things can exist together, which I think is the most highly developed form of consciousness. Just joking, but also not really. Like, the whole journey of the tarot is about the journey from the fool to the world, is about learning to live at the margins where things are confusing and hold paradoxes and understand that multiple things can be true at the same time. Like, the lowest form of consciousness actually is looking at something and being like, this is my way or the highway. I can see no other perspectives on this issue. And to feel content, Gemini moons need outlets for their wit and their banter. They need to socialize. They need to be with a partner that they find intellectually stimulating, or else they're never going to be happy in a relationship. But when they're surrounded by people who are intellectually stimulating to them, they are the absolute best version of themselves. They're imaginative, they're lively, they're charming, and they're very adaptable. Gemini is a mutable sign just like Virgo and just like Sagittarius. So Janelle is very mutable. She can adapt to anything. She's a little bit of a chameleon. She can fit into any social situation. And the last placement of hers that I want to cover is this third house Scorpio Saturn at 0 degrees. Any planet that you have at 0 degrees has a little bit of Aries energy incorporated into it. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so 0 degrees of the whole zodiacal circle is the first degree of Aries. And Aries has drive. Aries has passion. Aries wants to be a hero. Aries wants to act. But Aries is also a little bit naive. And with Saturn, I think that this naivete is like quite helpful. Hailey Bieber also has a 0 degree Saturn in Aries, which is why I think that her marriage to Justin isn't so much for love as it is for her saying, I have a goal and this is a means to achieve it. Like, these people have no jadedness, none of the melancholy that comes with an anoretic placement, the complete opposite. They came into this world and they had goals and they went and they achieved them, and that's it. There was never any question otherwise. Janelle clearly, if you can look at this chart, has several aspects. The major one being this thick red line that runs down the middle that connects her Gemini moon in the 10th house in a direct opposition with her sun, Mercury, and Venus in Sagittarius in the 4th house, as well as her IC. Her Mercury is exactly conjunct her Venus, and this is a placement that just exudes charm and magnetism. They have a lot of tact. They have a lot of gracefulness of expression. They just have an innate ability to communicate in a creative and artistic way. So obviously a perfect birth chart placement for someone who becomes an artist. This is also a common signature of people who have very beautiful either singing or speaking voices. And it's people who have a natural proclivity to creative writing. All of this obviously tick, 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 Janelle Monáe. There they are. Also in her 4th house of Sagittarius, she has her sun conjunct her Uranus and her IC. This is someone who has a very strong drive to be unique. They've always wanted to be different from others, and they've always had a bent toward being a very independent person. These are people who have always felt odd or a little alienated in some way, which is Uranus's influence. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, which is why this energy feels pretty Aquarian, but it's just Uranus placed in Sagittarius, another sign that likes to be expansive and different from everyone else. In the 4th house, it's really saying someone who never quite felt at home, and so has spent their whole life seeking out other ways that they can find community, other ways that they can find chosen family. And Janelle obviously is very close with their family, but also is a queer person, is non-binary, is an artist. She left her small Kansas City town and went to art school in New York City and also felt like she didn't fit in with those people, so she moved to Atlanta. She's lived all over the country looking for people who make her feel at home, looking for people who don't just share surface level traits like wanting to be an artist or being working class or being Black, but also share like her heart and her soul. And she's really made that come to life with her Wonderland Collective. That's the home and the community that she's created. And I think it's quite beautiful, and I could almost cry right now, but I've already done enough of that this episode. And this is also a signature of someone who has a complex relationship with their differences and their individuality. Like, they never wanted to be like everyone else, so they're happy to be unique and to be an individual. But it can also be really alienating to have looked for a home for so long and to feel like you weren't able to find it anywhere, to feel like no one that you were around understood you. And this also contributes to this like fourth house Sagittarius feeling of really needing to find home within yourself. There's this journey of figuring out that you can have relationship and be in community with people who don't 100% understand you, and then fill in the gaps by understanding yourself and spending time with yourself. Personally, I have also always felt misunderstood and like I don't fit in. I'm autistic. I'm a very femme presenting person, but I'm also a lesbian. I tried to date men and I did fit into that community with dating men for a while, but anytime they talked about sex, I would be like, no, not for me. And anytime they talked about like wanting to settle down and have babies, I was trying to fit myself into that mold. I was trying to be the person who wanted to settle down and have babies, but I was also, that's never been what I wanted. Personally, I think I would die in childbirth if I'm even fertile at all, but that's beside the point. I just don't want kids. That's just not the life that I want. Like, I get so restless in an apartment for 1 year in Pasadena. Like, I imagine if I had to take care of a child. I have 2 cats. They're quite enough for me. But all of that is to say that it is so important to understand that you can have friendships with people that you find cool who don't necessarily understand everything about you or everything that you've gone through or will go through. I mean, you're hard pressed to find someone who's not you, who has experienced all the same things that you have. You can still be really good friends with those people and love them so much, and foster a relationship with yourself so that you know you can always find home and understanding within you. Uranus conjunct the IC can represent someone who had early upheavals in their childhood home. I think this is representative of Janelle's parents getting divorced when she was young. These are upheavals that usually aren't actually that big or crazy, but do feel really big to a child, especially a young child. And divorce is definitely one of those things, as is remarriage, her mother marrying her stepfather, who always treated her well, but that's still an upheaval. It's still a change in the family. On the other side of the chart, we have her moon in Gemini conjunct her MC, or her midheaven, which is the point in your chart that represents your reputation and how society sees you. And the moon can represent the mother in the birth chart. So someone who has a moon conjunct their midheaven can take on some sort of like mother role in society, always keeping people together, always staying on top of things. And that, I feel, is very Janelle Monáe, from how she's talked about her friends and how she's talked about Wonderland Collective. Like, it just feels like she's always the one like corralling people together and getting them going, which is like a fun mom, but a mom nonetheless. But it's also someone who's super concerned with caring for and protecting their community in some way, which, as I've talked about, is very, very Janelle Monáe. But this also shows an innate need for personal recognition and a sensitivity to what society thinks about her. I think that she's probably pretty well healed and doesn't immediately come off as a people pleaser or have like immediate people pleaser traits, but she definitely is sensitive to what other people think about her. And I mean, I feel like we all are on some level, but hers is like coded into the DNA of her birth chart. She will always care what other people think about her. So now we have the moon conjunct the midheaven, opposite the sun, Mercury, and Venus all conjunct together with the IC. What does this mean? This is such like a big confluence of energies. I really look at each planet and how they affect each other individually, and then try to synthesize that together into an overall like story and energy. So her sun being opposite her moon means that she was born on a full moon. I've talked about new moon people a lot recently, I think specifically in my Love Island USA men astrology, because almost all of those boys were born on new moons, which is a little bit crazy, and I don't love it. People who were born on a new moon, meaning that the sun and the moon are in the same sign. The sun isn't shining any light on the moon. They're in the same place, which is why the moon appears dark to us, are people who have a hard time seeing from other perspectives. They have a hard time understanding that other people have different needs from their own. And then a full moon is like the complete opposite. These people have such a strong ability to understand other people's perspectives and that other people have different needs from them. They also really understand the importance of relationships, and relationships play such an important role in these lives. Speaking as an astrologer, I am much more likely to get an astrology reading request from someone who is born on a full moon than someone who is born on a new moon, because full moon people are usually trying to understand the bigger picture and the truth of everything, and people who are born on a new moon are sort of like, well, I already understand. I already know. I know how I feel. I don't need anyone else to tell me how I feel. Something that I think is so interesting about Janelle Monáe is that she has created this alter ego, Cindy Mayweather, from the year 2719. And I think that that is one of these people that she's in relationship with, because our relationships are a lot about projection. They're a lot about projecting parts of ourselves that we can't recognize internally. And so we need to deal with them externally. If you have an issue that you haven't worked through, someone will come into your life who has those qualities so that you can work through them externally and then be like, oh, this is actually about my internal self, and then work on that. So by having an alter ego, Janelle can have a relationship with someone else who is technically her own invention and part of her own self, but it's sort of like doing parts work like you would do in internal family systems, but externally. Like Cindy Mayweather has these qualities. How do I relate with these qualities? How do I accept them? How do I push back against them? How can I integrate them with myself? And so she can have relationship like a full moon person, but not necessarily have to deal with the fact that when you're in a relationship with another person, you can't control how they react to things. You have to just let the chips fall as they may. But outside of her relationship with her alter ego, these people also know really well how to be in relationships with other people and how to use their relationships with other people to get ahead and to achieve their dreams. They also have a great objectivity and an ability to see, as I mentioned, from a wide range of perspectives, but also to have great self-awareness and awareness of others. When the moon is opposite Mercury, the sensitive feeling nature of the moon combines with the sort of like androgynous, indifferent nature of Mercury, who is just the messenger, to create someone who is a really great communicator, who is really able to pick up on how other people are feeling and communicate to them in a way that is going to make the most sense to them. Mercury is also Janelle's chart ruler, so this is a very important placement in her chart, having Mercury in fiery and artistic and creative Sagittarius. So this is definitely like the heart of her chart. This conjunction of Sun, Mercury, Venus, I see is like the main locus of her chart that everything else feeds into. The moon opposite Mercury, however, can also have a downside where it can connect you so much to the history of your family. The history of Janelle's family, obviously being working class Black people who grew up in a very poor area. You can get so attached to the history of the plight and the oppression of the people and the family that you come from that you have a hard time looking at facts objectively and making the most informed choice. I think with the Gemini moon, that's pretty balanced because Gemini also wants the facts, but that's just something that they've had to watch out for throughout their lives. And then having the moon opposite Venus, now these are two planets. The moon is not a planet, but you understand. Two celestial bodies that are very soft and adaptable in nature. And so these just create someone who is very cooperative, who is very adaptable, especially being in Gemini and Sagittarius, which are both mutable signs. Someone who really is intuitive, like someone who is basically psychic, who can really intuit the energy around her and adapt the way that she's moving and expressing herself in those places to basically like read the room and give the people what they want. These transits that I just talked about are once again like the main focus in her chart. I have two more aspects that I want to cover, and both of them involve Janelle's Pluto in Libra. The first one is that her Mars in the 5th house Capricorn, Mars in the 5th house of creativity, and Capricorn being the best placement of Mars, so it's considered exalted there, which has allowed her to just have this natural innate drive to do creative stuff throughout her life, which is certainly a setup for success. But this also squares her Pluto in her 2nd house of Libra. And Pluto tends to bury whatever it touches. Pluto has a lot to do with the underworld. And so Mars principles like aggression and rage and energy and like overt sexuality tend to get buried when they make a square with Pluto. So these aren't elements of Janelle's chart that come off super strongly right off the bat, even though she has such a strong Mars placement in Capricorn where it's exalted. But with Mars and Pluto, when things reach a boiling point, all of these traits like aggression and energy that have been buried will very strongly come out to the surface and show themselves. These are also people who are just very fiercely competitive. They might not even know it about themselves, but even when they're playing like a board game or playing Uno with someone, they will be like, I need to win. I need to win. Almost like it's a matter of like fighting for survival or fighting to the death. Multiple guys in the Love Island USA cast have this placement, so I've talked about that aspect more, fighting for survival. But it is also this like tendency to bury Mars principles until you reach your breaking point, and then they all explode out of you. And honestly, good, because a lot of people out there need to be cussed out by Miss Janelle Monáe. A lot. And then the last aspect I want to cover is Janelle's Saturn, which is sitting at 0 degrees of Scorpio, conjunct her Pluto, which is at like 28 degrees of Libra, so conjunct within a 2-degree orb, which is off sign, so not as strong, but a very close orb nonetheless, so still a conjunction. Saturn usually causes you to fear or have struggles with whatever it touches, and once again, Pluto tries to bury anything that it touches. And Saturn-Pluto is a lot to do with power. Saturn-Pluto people have like an inherent dislike for power. They have an inherent problem with authority figures. They often don't think that there should be authority figures. And specifically, they don't like to be in charge. However, they are very good at being in charge. These people are very responsible. And one of the things that they need to accomplish in this life is to face their fear and become leaders and face that fear of being like, if I'm in charge, I'm going to be bad at it, and I'm going to be overbearing, and I'm going to be exactly like all of the authority figures that I don't like. But that's not true. Once they actually assume authority, maybe like Janelle has done over the Wonderland Collective, they are able to see, oh, I am actually a very good leader. Being a leader, having authority does not mean that you need to be unjust. You can treat people very fairly and nicely and still be in charge of them. And this is also a placement that indicates that she's always felt ostracized from society. This is a placement that tends to identify very strongly with the persecution and the oppression and the bad feelings that come with that of any group that they're a part of, even if they don't necessarily feel those bad feelings about it themselves. So the oppression and suffering of Black people, the oppression and suffering of working class people, the oppression and suffering of the LGBTQ plus community are all things that Janelle very strongly identifies with and wants to fight against, even if she herself has not necessarily been ostracized for being one of those things. I haven't heard Janelle speak about her sexuality in anything other than a positive way, so I don't know if there has been ostracization of her for being LGBTQ, for being non-binary, or if she hasn't really dealt with that. But regardless of what she has personally experienced in any of these areas, she feels the suffering of these people as a whole, and it is one of her life's duties to fight for these people and fight to end the oppression and end the suffering, which obviously is magnificent. And I think that she's doing an amazing job. Like, times are hard, but Janelle Monáe is out here flashing people and just being themselves in their most authentic light. And I think that that is a beautiful story of a queer Black person from a working class family who is really like, I don't care what you guys think of me. I'm just myself. And that's why I wanted to spotlight Janelle Monáe today. I sincerely, truly just love them and their music and their art and their acting. And I am so inspired every day. And I love doing celebrity birth charts because I feel so much more connected to them. I still know Janelle exactly as much as I knew her before, which is we have never met. But I really do hope that one day I get the chance because I think that they're just so freaking cool. My cat vommed and now she's hanging out with me. What's new? She wants to rub her vomit mouth all up on my fancy sequined dress. You guys probably can't even see her. Melrose, do you want to come on cam? If you're listening to this on Spotify, my cat is on camera. Come over to YouTube and look at how pretty she is. She really doesn't want to be hanging out with me right now. But I love her. All right, and that is all I had to say for this episode. As always, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you subscribing, liking the video, recommending to friends, etc. As I mentioned, I am working really hard on building my astrology business. If you want to book a reading, you can do so at the link in my bio. It's like a calendly.com/popstrology. And I'm also going to put a link on the screen here to a video where I show you how to book a reading and tell you a little bit more about them. You can also check out my website at popstrologypod.com, which also has a link to book a reading with me. And you can follow me for more frequent updates on Instagram or on TikTok at popstrologypod. And if you want to, you can always shoot me an email to popstrology@proton.me. I love talking to people. I love interacting with other people, especially other people who love astrology and pop culture. So I really appreciate all of your support. I hope you have a phenomenal week, and I will talk to you next weekend. Bye.